Dr. Zareth stared at the data screen with her 3 crystalline eyes, each one focusing on a different part of the impossible information floating before her. The numbers made no sense. After 200 years of humans joining the Galactic Confederation, the greatest minds in the galaxy still could not explain how these creatures worked. The problem was simple to state but impossible to solve. Humans came from Earth, a planet that every survey had labeled as a Class 7 garden world. Garden worlds were peaceful places with gentle weather, friendly animals, and easy living. They produced soft, weak species that needed protection from the dangers of space. But humans were the exact opposite of soft and weak. Humans could survive on death worlds that killed other species in minutes. They could eat foods that were poison to most aliens. They could fight battles that made even the toughest warriors nervous. They could adapt to any environment faster than anyone thought possible. It was like finding out that a butterfly could beat a space marine in combat. Dr. Zareth called Kethmore from across the laboratory. The insect-like alien's 4 arms moved in nervous patterns as he spoke. The Confederation Council has approved your request. We can finally go back to Earth and figure out what we missed. Zareth's crystalline body brightened with excitement. For 50 years she had been asking for permission to do a proper study of Earth. The first surveys had been quick and shallow. The humans had been new to the galaxy then, and everyone had assumed their homeworld was just another boring garden planet. Now she had the chance to solve the greatest mystery in galactic science. "When do we leave?" she asked. "Tomorrow," said Captain Thulvin as he entered the lab. The large reptilian officer wore his military uniform with pride, his scales gleaming under the lights. "My ship is ready and the crew is excited. Though I still think this is dangerous. Humans are unpredictable." The captain was not wrong to be careful. Humans had a reputation throughout the galaxy. They were known as the species that could not be stopped. When other aliens faced impossible odds, they gave up or asked for help. When humans faced impossible odds, they got angry and started making plans. It was both impressive and terrifying. "The ship's AI is ready too," added Madre's calm voice from the speakers around the room. The Monitoring and Analysis Distributed Research Entity was one of the most advanced computer minds in the Confederation. "I have studied every piece of data about Earth from the past 2 centuries. I am very curious to see if our theories are correct." Madre had several theories about humans, and none of them made Zareth feel comfortable. The AI believed that either the first surveys of Earth had been completely wrong, or humans were not really from Earth at all. Both possibilities were disturbing in their own ways. Zareth moved to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet that had somehow produced the galaxy's most successful species. Every other world followed predictable patterns. Harsh worlds made tough species, but they were usually limited in other ways. Easy worlds made smart species, but they were usually weak. Only Earth had produced something that was tough, smart, adaptable, and seemingly impossible to defeat. "I have been thinking about the human stories," said Kethmore, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. "They tell tales of their world that sound like nightmare fantasies. Giant lizards that ruled their planet, ice ages that covered everything in snow, rocks from space that destroyed entire continents. But they tell these stories like they are normal history lessons." Captain Thulvin's scales rippled in what Zareth recognized as unease. "I fought alongside humans in the Vegan War," he said. "I watched a human soldier named Martinez walk through plasma fire that would have melted my armor. He was not even wearing full battle gear. When I asked him how he survived, he laughed and said his hometown was hotter in summer." These kinds of stories were common throughout the galaxy. Every species had tales of humans doing impossible things and acting like it was normal. Zareth had collected thousands of such reports, but she still could not understand how they were possible. "Madre," she called to the AI, "show us the current classification data for Earth." The air above the table shimmered, and a holographic display appeared. Earth floated there, blue and white and beautiful. Around it, text scrolled by with all the official information. Planet designation, Earth Sol System. Classification, Class 7 Garden World. Gravity, 1.0 standard. Atmosphere, oxygen-nitrogen mix, safe for most species. Weather, mild and predictable. Dangerous life forms, minimal. Threat level, very low. Recommended for rest and relaxation, agricultural development, civilian colonies. Zareth made a sound that was her species' version of laughing, but it was not a happy sound. Look at that data and then think about humans. Does any of it make sense? No, admitted Captain Thulvin. I have seen humans use gravity 3 times Earth normal for exercise training. I have watched them breathe air that would burn the lungs of most species. I have seen them survive weather that grounded our military ships. Madre's voice carried a note of something that might have been confusion, which was unusual for an AI. I have been running calculations for decades, she said. The probability of a Class 7 garden world producing a species like humans is so small that my systems register it as effectively 0. Either our classification system is fundamentally flawed, or something about Earth is being hidden from us. The room fell quiet as they all considered the implications. If Earth was not really a garden world, then what was it? And if it was something else, why had no one noticed before? There is another possibility, said Kethmore slowly. What if Earth really is a garden world? But human ideas about what makes a world peaceful are very different from ours. That thought sent chills through Zarath's crystalline structure. If humans considered Earth to be a peaceful, easy world, what did that say about what they could handle when things got difficult? Tomorrow we will have answers, said Captain Thulvin with the confidence of a career military officer. My ship is fast and well-armed. My crew is experienced. We will solve this mystery once and for all. But Zarath noticed that even as he spoke, the captain's hand moved unconsciously to check his weapon. Humans made everyone nervous even when they were trying to help. There was something about them that set off every survival instinct that other species possessed. The holographic Earth continued to spin slowly above the table, looking peaceful and inviting. Zarath stared at it and wondered what secrets it was hiding. Tomorrow they would begin their journey to the most mysterious world in the galaxy. Tomorrow they would finally learn the truth about humans and their impossible home. She just hoped they would survive the discovery. As the team prepared to leave, none of them noticed the small note in Madre's data files. It was a comment from the original survey team, buried deep in the technical reports. It said simply, recommend immediate reclassification. This world is not what it appears to be. Request backup before further study. The note had been filed 200 years ago and forgotten. But tomorrow they would learn why it had been written. The research ship Axiom's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, and immediately every alarm on the bridge started screaming. What is happening? Shouted Captain Thulvin, his scales turning dark with stress as he rushed to his command chair. I am detecting massive energy readings from the central star, Madre reported, her usually calm voice carrying notes of confusion. The radiation levels are far higher than any Class 7 system should produce. According to my data, this star should have burned out any life on nearby planets millions of years ago. Dr. Zarath felt her crystalline body growing cold as she stared at the sensor readings. That cannot be right. Check your instruments, Madre. I have run diagnostics 17 times in the past 30 seconds, the AI replied. All systems are functioning perfectly. The star that humans call the Sun is pumping out enough radiation to sterilize most worlds in this galaxy. Yet somehow, the third planet is covered in life signs. As they moved closer to Earth, the readings became even more impossible. Kethmore's forearms moved frantically over his control panel, his compound eyes reflecting data streams that made no sense. Dr. Zarath, he called out, his voice high with stress. The atmospheric readings from Earth are showing oxygen levels at 21%. That concentration would be toxic to most species we know. How do humans breathe this mixture without dying? Perhaps they use breathing equipment, suggested Captain Thulvin, but even he sounded doubtful. Negative, said Madre. I am detecting billions of life forms on the surface, all breathing the atmosphere directly, but that is not the most disturbing reading. The gravity well of this planet is showing 1.2 standard units, not the 1.0 that was reported. That level of gravity would crush most civilian species within hours. Zarath moved to the main viewing screen and stared down at Earth as it grew larger. It looked beautiful from space, with white clouds swirling over blue oceans and brown-green continents. It looked exactly like the garden world it was supposed to be. But the instruments were telling a different story. I am reading something else, Kethmore reported, his voice getting higher. The magnetic field around this planet is incredibly strong. It is deflecting radiation that would normally reach the surface. Without this protection, The planet would be a burned wasteland. So the planet protects itself, said Captain Thulven. That is interesting, but not impossible. You do not understand, Kethmore continued. This magnetic field is not steady. It moves and changes. Sometimes it weakens and lets radiation through. Sometimes it reverses completely. According to these readings, the magnetic field has reversed dozens of times in the planet's history. Each time the surface would have been exposed to deadly radiation. The implications hit Zarath like a physical blow. You mean the life on this planet has survived multiple extinction-level radiation events? It appears so, Madre confirmed. I am also detecting evidence of massive meteor impacts, volcanic explosions that would alter global weather patterns, and ice ages that covered most of the planet's surface. Yet life not only survived these events, it became more complex after each one. Captain Thulven was quiet for a long moment. Madre, how many extinction events has Earth experienced? According to geological data, at least 5 major extinction events, plus dozens of smaller catastrophes. The most recent major event occurred 65 million years ago when a meteor the size of a small moon struck the planet. And humans evolved after this? Asked Zarath. Humans and all their current ecosystem evolved after surviving all of these events, Madre replied. Every species currently living on Earth is descended from survivors of multiple apocalypses. The bridge fell silent as they processed this information. Every species in the galaxy knew about extinction events. They were the ultimate nightmare, the thing that ended civilizations and wiped out entire evolutionary lines. Most species were lucky to survive one such event in their planet's history. Earth had survived at least 5, and life had grown stronger each time. I think we need to land and take direct readings, said Zarath, trying to keep her voice steady. The orbital data might be wrong. I will select a safe landing site, offered Madre. There is a large continent that shows minimal dangerous activity. The humans have marked it as suitable for what they call nature hiking and family camping. They descended through Earth's atmosphere, and immediately the readings got worse. The air pressure was crushing by galactic standards. The temperature variations were extreme. The atmospheric composition included gases that were corrosive to most known materials. How is our environmental suit holding up? Asked Captain Thulven. The outer layer is being slowly dissolved by atmospheric acids, reported Madre. However, the suits should last for several days. I am curious why humans do not seem to need any protection from their own atmosphere. They landed in what looked like a peaceful forest. Tall plants stretched toward the sky, and smaller plants covered the ground in a thick carpet of green. It looked exactly like the garden worlds that Zarath had visited throughout her career. But as soon as they stepped outside the ship, everything went wrong. Kethmore was the first to notice the problem. These plants, he said, his voice shaking, they are releasing chemical compounds into the air. Some of these chemicals are toxic. Others are designed to attract or repel specific organisms. The plants are engaged in active chemical warfare with each other. Zarath knelt to examine what looked like a simple flower. Her instruments immediately started warning her about the toxins it contained. This single plant produces enough poison to kill a dozen saurians, she reported, but humans consider these flowers to be decorative. They grow them in their homes. I am detecting movement in the soil, added Madre through their communicators. The ground is full of organisms that break down dead material. However, many of them appear to be capable of attacking living tissue as well. The humans walk on this ground with minimal foot protection. Captain Thulven's military training kicked in, and he began scanning for threats. What he found made his scales turn pale. There are predators everywhere, he reported. I count at least 40 different species within 100 meters that are designed to hunt and kill other animals. Some of them are so small I almost miss them, but they carry venom that could stop my heart. This is supposed to be a safe area, Zarath said weakly. According to human classifications, this is one of their most peaceful environments, Madre confirmed. They bring their young here for education and recreation. The team spent the next few hours taking readings, and each measurement made their situation seem more hopeless. The very air was full of microscopic organisms, some beneficial, but many hostile. The water contained dissolved minerals that would be toxic to most species. Even the soil was aggressive, breaking down any organic material with frightening efficiency. "I need to contact the ship," said Captain Thulven, his voice tight with stress. "We may need to evacuate immediately." But as he tried to call Madre, they heard something that made them all freeze. It was the sound of voices getting closer. Human voices, talking and laughing as they approached through the forest. "They are coming this way," whispered Kethmore. "They sound happy." Through the trees, they could see a group of humans walking along a path. There were adults and children, all of them moving easily through the toxic environment that was slowly destroying the aliens' protective equipment. They wore light clothing that provided almost no protection. They breathed the corrosive air directly into their lungs. They walked on the ground that was full of predators and toxins, and they were having fun. "How?" whispered Zarath. "How are they not dead?" The humans passed by without noticing the hidden aliens, their voices fading into the distance. But their casual survival in an environment that was killing the research team sent chills through everyone watching. "We need to go deeper," said Zarath finally. "We need to understand what we are really looking at." But even as she said it, she was starting to suspect that they had made a terrible mistake. Earth was not a garden world that had somehow produced super predators. Earth was something much worse, and they were standing in the middle of it with equipment that was already failing. Dr. Zarath's crystalline structure was developing stress fractures as her team moved deeper into what humans called a typical forest. Every step revealed new horrors that challenged everything she thought. She knew about how life was supposed to work, Madre. She called through her communicator. "I need you to record everything we are seeing. The Galactic Confederation will never believe this without complete documentation." "I am recording, Dr. Zarath," the AI replied, but there was something strange in her voice. "However, I must report that my analysis systems are having difficulty processing the data. The survival strategies I am observing violate several fundamental principles of evolutionary biology." Kethmore had stopped moving entirely. His compound eyes were focused on a small creature that looked harmless enough, but his instruments were screaming warnings. "This tiny mammal," he said in a voice barely above a whisper, "has venom delivery systems more sophisticated than our military weapons. It can inject toxins that cause paralysis, organ failure, and death within minutes. But according to human databases, children keep these creatures as pets." Captain Thulven was examining what appeared to be a simple tree. His military scanner was having trouble cataloging all the defensive systems built into the plant. "This tree produces chemicals that can dissolve metal," he reported. "It also releases airborne toxins when threatened, and its bark contains compounds that cause severe burns. Yet humans use similar trees to build their homes." But the trees were just the beginning. As they moved through the forest, they discovered that every single organism they encountered was engaged in an endless war for survival. Plants fought each other with poison and thorns. Animals hunted with weapons that evolution had spent millions of years perfecting. Even the smallest insects carried enough firepower to threaten much larger creatures. "Look at this," called Zarath from beside a small stream. "The water contains organisms that can eat through organic material. There are also micropredators that hunt other microorganisms. The entire ecosystem exists in multiple layers of conflict, from the microscopic level all the way up to the largest predators." Madre's voice came through their communicators with a note of what could only be described as electronic distress. "I have been analyzing the water samples you collected. This liquid contains bacteria that produce acid strong enough to dissolve bone. It also contains parasites that can take control of their host's nervous system. Yet humans regularly swim in this water for recreation." The revelation that had Captain Thulven really worried came when they found evidence of the planet's weather patterns. "These trees show damage from something humans call storms," he reported. "According to the scarring patterns, these storms involve winds moving at speeds that would destroy our military vehicles. They also involve electrical discharges that carry more power than our ship's main weapons." "How often do these storms occur?" asked Kethmore nervously. Madre had access to human weather records. "According to historical data, major storms occur multiple times per year in most regions. Humans consider this normal weather and plan their activities around it." Zarath was beginning to understand the scope of what they were dealing with. "Madre, show me the data on Earth's geological activity." The AI's report was terrifying. Earth's surface is constantly changing due to internal forces. The ground beneath our feet is floating on a layer of molten rock. This molten rock occasionally breaks through the surface in events humans call volcanic eruptions. These eruptions can alter global weather patterns and destroy entire regions. How often? Asked Captain Thulven, though he seemed afraid to hear the answer. Major volcanic activity occurs somewhere on the planet every few years. Catastrophic eruptions that affect global climate happen roughly every few thousand years. Humans have learned to predict and adapt to this activity. But the worst discovery came when they found evidence of Earth's history with extraterrestrial impacts. Scattered through the forest were strange rocks that Madre identified as meteor fragments. This planet is regularly bombarded by objects from space, the AI reported. Small meteors arrive daily. Larger impacts that could destroy cities occur every few centuries. Planet-killing impacts happen roughly every few million years. Kethmore's individual consciousness was beginning to fragment under the stress of these revelations. They live on a planet that tries to kill them in dozens of different ways, he said, his voice rising. The air is toxic, the water is full of predators, the weather is violent, the ground moves and explodes, and rocks fall from the sky. How are they not extinct? The answer came when they observed more humans moving through the forest. This group was smaller, just 2 adults and a child who could not have been more than a few years old. They moved through the toxic environment with casual confidence, pointing out interesting plants and animals to the young one. The child is learning, observed Zarath with growing horror. They are teaching it to identify which organisms are dangerous and which are merely toxic. This is normal education for human offspring. Captain Thulven watched the humans through his scope. The adult humans are not carrying any weapons or protection devices, he reported. They are relying entirely on their own abilities to survive in this environment. What happened next broke something fundamental in the research team's understanding of how life was supposed to work. The human child, small and apparently defenseless, noticed a large predator approaching through the trees. Instead of running or calling for help, the child calmly informed the adults. The adults looked at the predator, evaluated its behavior, and then simply guided their group along a different path. The predator, which Zarath's instruments identified as a creature capable of killing all 3 humans easily, watched them go and then returned to its own business. They coexist, whispered Kethmore. The humans and the super predators coexist because both species understand the rules of survival. Madre's voice was becoming increasingly strained. I have been analyzing human entertainment media to better understand their psychology, she reported. Humans create fictional scenarios for amusement that involve even greater dangers than their normal environment. They appear to find their reality insufficiently challenging. This last revelation was too much for Captain Thulven. The veteran warrior sat down heavily on a log, his scales pale with shock. I have fought in 12 major battles, he said quietly. I have seen the worst that the galaxy can throw at a soldier. But these humans are living through combat conditions every single day, and they call it normal life. Zarath was starting to see the bigger picture, and it terrified her. Madre accessed the human historical records. I need to know how they developed on this planet. The AI's report painted a picture of evolutionary pressure that was beyond anything previously recorded. Human ancestors survived ice ages that covered most of the planet in frozen wasteland. They survived volcanic winters that blocked sunlight for years. They survived the rise and fall of super predators that make current Earth life look gentle. Each catastrophe forced rapid adaptation or extinction. And they survived all of it, said Zarath. Not just survived, Madre corrected. They thrived. Each generation became more adaptable, more resilient, more capable of handling impossible situations. Humans are not products of a garden world. Humans are products of a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill them. And they won. The research team sat in the toxic forest surrounded by predators and poisons, listening to the sounds of a planet that was engaged in constant warfare at every level. And somewhere in that deadly symphony, they could hear human voices laughing as they enjoyed a peaceful day in nature. We need to call for evacuation, said Captain Thulven quietly. This is not a research mission anymore. This is a survival situation. But even as he spoke, they all knew that humans walked through this survival situation every day of their lives. And somehow, they had built a civilization that dominated the galaxy while treating their apocalyptic homeworld as a pleasant place to raise children. The mystery was beginning to solve itself, but the answer was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. The research team had retreated to their ship for emergency medical treatment when Madre made the discovery that changed everything. Dr. Zarath was having her stress fractures repaired when the AI's voice filled the medical bay with what could only be described as electronic panic. Dr. Zarath, Madre called urgently. I have accessed Earth's complete geological database. What we have been studying is not representative of this planet's true nature. Kethmore, whose individual consciousness was slowly recovering with medication, looked up from his treatment bed. What do you mean? We have seen the toxins, the predators, the environmental dangers. We have been studying Earth during what humans consider a peaceful period, Madre explained. According to their records, the planet is currently in what they call an interglacial period, a brief warm phase between ice ages. The humans consider current conditions to be unusually mild and stable. Captain Thulvan's scales went completely white. Mild? They consider this a mild period? Madre continued her report, and each new fact was more horrifying than the last. The current era, which humans call the Holocene, has lasted for approximately 11,000 years. During this time, Earth has experienced what humans describe as relatively minor disasters. These include supervolcanic eruptions, massive earthquakes, tsunamis that destroyed entire coastlines, and climate shifts that altered global weather patterns. Those are the minor disasters, whispered Zarath. During more typical periods in Earth's history, Madre continued, the planet experiences ice ages that bury continents under kilometers of ice. These ice ages last for tens of thousands of years and force all life to adapt or die. Between ice ages, there are periods of massive volcanic activity that can block sunlight for decades. The medical equipment monitoring Kethmore started beeping alarms as his stress levels spiked again. You mean the environment we just barely survived is Earth during its vacation period? I have also discovered information about a region humans call Australia, Madre added. Initial surveys classified it as part of Earth's standard ecosystem. However, human cultural references suggest this continent is considered notably dangerous even by their standards. Captain Thulvan made a sound that was part laugh and part scream. There is a part of this death world that even humans think is dangerous. But the truly terrifying revelation came when Madre accessed human educational materials. I have been analyzing what humans teach their children about their world, she reported. They have detailed instructions for surviving dozens of different types of natural disasters. Children learn these survival techniques as part of basic education. Zarath struggled to process this information. They teach children how to survive disasters that would end civilizations. Earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions, severe storms, blizzards, droughts, wildfires, and meteor impacts, Madre listed. Human children learn to identify and respond to all of these as normal life skills, like learning to read or write. The research team was quiet for a long moment as they absorbed the implications. Then Captain Thulvan asked the question that was terrifying them all. Madre, what do humans consider to be a dangerous environment? The AI was silent for several seconds, which was an eternity for a computer mind. I have been searching human databases for references to environments they consider truly hazardous, she finally reported. The closest I can find are regions they describe as temporarily uninhabitable due to extreme conditions, such as, prompted Zarath, active volcanic zones during major eruptions, areas experiencing severe winter storms, regions affected by large earthquakes, and zones contaminated by industrial accidents, Madre listed. However, humans regularly enter these areas for scientific research, rescue operations, and resource extraction. They consider them dangerous but not impossible to work in. Kethmore's voice was very small when he spoke. What about the regions they refuse to enter? I cannot find any such regions in the human databases, Madre replied. There appear to be no areas on Earth that humans consider completely inaccessible. They have established permanent research stations at both polar extremes, in the deepest ocean trenches and active volcanic regions, and in areas with extreme radiation levels. The medical bay fell silent except for the quiet humming of life support systems. Each member of the research team was trying to understand what they had discovered. Earth was not just deadlier than a typical death world. Earth was deadlier than anything in the galactic database of dangerous planets. Madre, said Zarath slowly, show me the human space program records. How did they react when they first left Earth? The AI's report was the final piece of the puzzle. Human space exploration records indicate that they found other worlds to be remarkably hospitable compared to their home planet. Their first reaction to most alien environments was that they seemed easy and peaceful. Humans regularly establish colonies on worlds that other species classify as barely habitable. Because to them, barely habitable is a significant improvement over home, Captain Thulven realized. I have also analyzed human reactions to meeting other species, Madre continued. Humans frequently express confusion about why other species require extensive protection equipment in environments that humans consider normal. They appeared genuinely surprised that their standard living conditions would be lethal to most galactic life. Zarath was beginning to understand the true scope of the mystery they had solved. They do not realize how extraordinary they are because their reference point for normal is so extreme that everything else seems easy by comparison. There is more, Madre added. I have been studying human military records. When humans encounter what other species consider impossible combat situations, they often comment that the experience reminds them of home. Human soldiers frequently perform better in hostile environments than in comfortable ones. Because hostile environments are what they were designed for, said Kethmore, his voice filled with awe and terror. Captain Thulven was staring at the ceiling of the medical bay. We have been trying to understand how a garden world produced super soldiers, he said quietly. But Earth is not a garden world. Earth is a forge. It spent millions of years hammering humans into the perfect survival machines. Madre's voice carried a note of something like wonder. I have calculated the probability of human-level adaptability evolving on a typical garden world, she reported. The chance is so small that it would never happen in the entire history of the universe. But the probability of such adaptability evolving on Earth, given the constant environmental pressures, approaches statistical certainty. So, humans are not an impossible anomaly, said Zarath. They are the inevitable result of their environment. Every disaster that should have destroyed them made them stronger, confirmed Madre. Every extinction event that should have ended their evolutionary line forced rapid adaptation. Every environmental challenge that should have limited their development created new capabilities. The research team sat in stunned silence as they processed the magnitude of their discovery. They had come to Earth expecting to solve a minor scientific mystery. Instead, they had discovered that the galaxy's most successful species was not successful despite their origins, but because of them. We need to report this immediately, said Captain Thulven. The Confederation needs to know what we have learned. But as he spoke, their ship's communication system chimed with an incoming message. The voice that came through the speakers was cheerful and friendly, speaking in the standard galactic trade language with a slight accent that marked the speaker as human. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Station. We noticed you landed in our system and wanted to check if you need any assistance. Please respond at your convenience. The research team looked at each other with expressions of pure terror. They were about to make contact with products of the deadliest world in the galaxy, and the humans were offering to help. The human transport ship docked with Axiom's Edge with a gentle bump that spoke of expert piloting skills. Dr. Zarath and her team waited in the docking bay, their hearts racing with fear and anticipation. They were about to meet face-to-face with the products of the deadliest world in the galaxy. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and 3 humans stepped through. They looked exactly like the images in the galactic databases, bipedal mammals with smooth skin and expressive faces. They wore simple uniforms and carried no visible weapons. They looked completely ordinary, which somehow made them more terrifying. Hello, said the first human, a woman with dark hair and kind eyes. I'm Commander Sarah Chen. This is Dr. James Okafor and Specialist Maria Santos. We're here to welcome you to our system and offer any assistance you might need. Captain Thulven stepped forward, his military training overcoming his fear. I am Captain Thulven of the Galactic Confederation research vessel Axiom's Edge. We are conducting a scientific survey of your world. That's wonderful, said Dr. Okafor with genuine enthusiasm. We don't get many research teams visiting Earth directly. Most species prefer to study us from a distance. He paused and looked around the docking bay. Is your team all right? You all seem a bit stressed. Kethmore made a sound that was supposed to be a laugh but came out as more of a whimper. We have been studying your planet's surface conditions, he explained. The experience has been educational. Specialist Santos smiled brightly. Oh, you went down to the surface. How wonderful. What did you think of Earth? We always love hearing what other species think of our home. Dr. Zarath found her voice, though it cracked slightly as she spoke. Your world is not what we expected. The environmental challenges are quite severe. The three humans exchanged glances, and Commander Chen looked concerned. Severe, where did you land? I hope you didn't touch down during storm season. The weather has been pretty mild lately, but I know some species are sensitive to atmospheric pressure changes. We landed in what your databases describe as a peaceful forest suitable for family recreation, Captain Thulvin reported. Oh, that sounds lovely, said Dr. Okafor. The temperate forests are beautiful this time of year. Perfect weather for hiking and camping. Madre's voice came through the ship's speakers. Dr. Okafor, I'm curious about human perceptions of environmental danger. What would you consider to be hazardous conditions on Earth? Dr. Okafor thought for a moment. Well, I suppose I wouldn't want to be caught outside during a major hurricane or tornado. And you definitely want to be careful around active volcanoes. Winter storms can be dangerous if you're not prepared. But mostly, Earth is pretty safe if you use common sense and basic safety precautions. The research team stared at him in disbelief. The humans were casually discussing environmental conditions that would be classified as planetary disasters on most worlds. Commander Chen, said Zarath carefully, could you tell us about human survival training? What do you teach your children about staying safe on Earth? Oh, the usual things, Chen replied with a shrug. How to recognize different types of dangerous weather. Basic first aid for animal bites and plant poisoning. What to do during earthquakes and floods. How to find clean water and safe shelter. Just normal life skills, Specialist Santos nodded. My daughter just started school, and she's learning to identify poisonous plants and venomous animals in our neighborhood. It's amazing how quickly kids pick up that stuff. Kethmore's compound eyes were spinning in different directions as he tried to process this information. You teach children to identify poisons and venoms as basic education? Of course, said Dr. Okafor, looking puzzled. You have to know what's dangerous and what's safe. That's just common sense anywhere you live. Captain Thulvin decided to try a different approach. What do humans do for recreation on Earth? The three humans brightened immediately. Oh, there are so many fun activities, said Santos. Hiking, swimming, camping, rock climbing, skiing, surfing. James here is really into mountain climbing. I just got back from scaling Mount Everest, Dr. Okafor said proudly. The weather was perfect. Only -40 degrees and winds around 60 kilometers per hour. Madre's voice carried a note of electronic distress. Dr. Okafor, those conditions would be fatal to most known species within minutes. Really? Dr. Okafor looked genuinely surprised. I mean, it's cold and windy, but with proper gear it's not that bad. The real challenge is the thin air at that altitude. Commander Chen turned to the research team. I'm starting to get the impression that you find Earth more dangerous than we do. Is that what's causing your stress? Zarath decided it was time to be honest. Commander, we have discovered that Earth has environmental conditions that are far more extreme than anything in our databases. We are having difficulty understanding how your species survives what we would classify as continuously lethal circumstances. The three humans looked at each other again, and this time their expressions showed understanding mixed with surprise. Oh, said Chen softly. You're from worlds that are actually safe, aren't you? What do you mean? Asked Captain Thulvin. Dr. Okafor stepped forward, his manner becoming more serious. We've always wondered why other species seemed so fragile compared to humans. We thought maybe we were just lucky or had better technology. But if your homeworlds don't have the same kinds of challenges as Earth— Challenges? Repeated Kethmore weakly. Specialist Santos nodded. The constant adaptation pressure. The need to be ready for anything. The way Earth keeps throwing new problems at us that we have to solve or die. She paused and looked thoughtful. I guess if you come from a stable, safe world, Earth would seem pretty hostile. Earth is not hostile, said Commander Chen firmly. Earth is home. It's challenging, sure, but it made us who we are. Every disaster we've survived, every threat we've overcome, every impossible situation we've adapted to, it all shaped humanity into what we became. Dr. Okafor smiled. We don't see Earth as dangerous. We see it as the training ground that prepared us for anything the universe could throw at us. Madre's voice was very quiet when she spoke. Humans, I need to ask you something important. Do you realize that most species in the galaxy would die within hours of exposure to your normal living conditions? The three humans were silent for a long moment. Then Commander Chen spoke slowly. No, we didn't realize that. We thought everyone was roughly as adaptable as we are, just maybe with different specializations. You thought wrong, said Captain Thulvin gently. Humans are the most resilient, adaptable, and survivable species the galaxy has ever encountered. And now we know why. Dr. Zareth stepped forward. We came here to solve the mystery of how a garden world could produce a species like humanity. What we discovered is that Earth is not a garden world. Earth is a forge that spent millions of years hammering your species into the ultimate survivors. Specialist Santos looked around at her companions. So when we go to other worlds and everything seems so easy and peaceful, that's because compared to Earth, everything else in the galaxy is easy and peaceful, confirmed Madre. The humans stood quietly for a moment absorbing this revelation. Then Dr. Okafor started laughing, not with mockery but with genuine amusement. That explains so much, he said. Why other species need so much protective equipment. Why they're so careful about environmental conditions. Why they think human space marines are impossibly tough. Commander Chen was smiling too. We're not super soldiers. We're just people who grew up on a world that doesn't believe in easy mode. Dr. Zareth felt something like relief flowing through her crystalline structure. The mystery was solved. Humans were not an impossible anomaly or a threat to galactic stability. They were simply the natural product of their extraordinary world. Commander Chen, she said, we would like to file a formal report with the Galactic Confederation, recommending that Earth be reclassified. What kind of classification? Asked Chen curiously. Captain Thulvin answered with deep respect in his voice. Class 1 Apex Deathworld. Unsuitable for settlement by any known species except humans. Recommended for advanced survival training only, and only under human supervision. The three humans looked at each other and burst into laughter. You want to classify Earth as a death world? Asked Santos between giggles. Earth is home, said Dr. Okafor with a warm smile. It's the most beautiful, wonderful, challenging, and perfect world in the galaxy. It made us who we are, and we wouldn't change a thing about it. Commander Chen extended her hand to Dr. Zareth in the human gesture of friendship. Would you like to stay for dinner? We'd love to show you some of our local cuisine. Don't worry, we'll make sure it's safe for your digestive systems. As the research team accepted the invitation, they realized they had not just solved the greatest mystery in galactic science. They had also discovered that the most dangerous species in the galaxy was also the most welcoming. Earth had not created monsters. Earth had created the ultimate survivors, who happened to be some of the nicest people in the universe.